Rivalry week is in the books, and the dust has settled a bit, so we have a lot to talk about. Before we get into it, please make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, and without further ado, let's talk about the games, starting with the Iron Bowl. And we always talk about the voodoo magic that's in Jordan Hare, but little did we know that the darkest magic in this game would not come from the stadium itself. It was coming from the guys in black and white. Yes, another Auburn heartbreak decided by the refs. And look, it sucks to even start the video like this. It sucks for Auburn fans. It sucks for college football fans. And honestly, it just sucks for the sport. But here we are again. Auburn was robbed once again of an all-time classic because the Zebras wanted to step into the spotlight. So let me take you back to that last scoring drive for Alabama. It was gross. Every time Auburn got a stop, here came another flag. And when they rolled the replay, my jaw was just on the floor. I couldn't believe it because some of those calls were just insane, ridiculous. But, of course, as usual, there will be zero accountability from the SC office. And the worst part is Auburn fans have seen this movie play out way too many times. And for Alabama fans, congrats. I guess. You survive another week and stay alive in the playoff hunt despite not really deserving it. But to be fair, Auburn did not play a perfect game either. It's not guaranteed they would have won even without the officiating fiasco because Auburn gave away so many chances to take the game out of the refs' hands. The Tigers played a messy, frustrating game filled with dropped wide open passes, senseless penalties, and ball security issues. And that's what's really sad about this game because Auburn truly outplayed Alabama. They executed the exact type of game they needed to win, but the mistakes just kept pulling them back. They also struggled early stopping the run, which put them in a 17-0 hole, which kind of looked at the end of the game. But once they settled in and shut down Alabama's ground game, Auburn clawed their way out of that hole back to tie it. And then one final drive, part offense, part officiating crew, put the game away. So yes, the refs played a massive role in this outcome, but Auburn also had plenty of chances to make officiating irrelevant. And like Auburn has done in so many close games this season, they were not able to finish. Meanwhile, Alabama does what Alabama always does and escapes with a win in a game they probably shouldn't have won. And now they're heading back to Atlanta with a rematch against Georgia, while Auburn ends the season one game short of bowl eligibility. So the silver lining, though, for Auburn is they hired Alex Golesh. He's officially the new head coach, and he's probably going to retain DJ Durkin on his staff, so the future is very bright. I love Alex Golesh. I'll talk about him a little bit later, but I think it's a great hire. It's just a shame that Auburn couldn't overcome the combination of bad officiating and their own mistakes in this game to finally slam the door on Alabama's season. So Alabama now makes it 5 in a row in the Iron Bowl. Now moving on to the game, Ohio State versus Michigan. And the Buckeyes finally broke the streak, taking down Michigan and doing it in dominant fashion. And honestly, it looked like just another Saturday for the Buckeyes that haven't really been challenged all season. Roster-wise, Ohio State was clearly better, but considering how little that had mattered over the past 4 years, I genuinely wondered whether Michigan would be able to flip the script yet again. But no, not this time, not even close. Going into the game, my biggest question was whether the game would be played from the neck up or the neck down. And Ohio State answered that pretty much immediately. Well, not immediately, it was pretty close there for a little bit, but we pretty quickly saw who the better team was and who was going to win this game. They threw the last 4 years right in the trash can and just got to work. So they came in with a much better game plan than they did last season. Instead of trying to beat Michigan at their own game, which is that ground and pound, bully ball, slow game down type of situation, they just leaned on what they do best, and that's get the ball into the hands of their best players and let that elite talent cook. And man, did they cook. But here's where I'm stuck. I still have no idea what to think of Ohio State overall and their ceiling because their schedule is a complete joke. Michigan is probably the best team they played all season, which is pretty sad because Michigan hasn't looked elite at any point this year. But even with that said, Ohio State really looked good in this game and has all season long. It's really hard to find a flaw with this roster, and honestly, I hope they are not as good as they look because they might be terrifying by the time the playoff rolls around. But that's a conversation for another day. In this game, they dominated the stat sheet, and they dominated on the field. Now, yes, there was a questionable officiating call here too, especially with that Jeremiah Smith catch. But considering the final margin, I'm not going to make a big deal about it. The ref was probably still annoyed that he got headbutted by a Michigan player. Who knows? It's still a massive sigh of relief for Ohio State as a fan base. They finally accomplished the one thing they failed to do for the past few seasons. And for a lot of them, beating Michigan matters way more than winning a national championship. So congratulations, you earned this one. And for Michigan, it was fun while it lasted. Your playoff hopes are now dead. And look, I'm just being honest. I think Michigan needs a new head coach. I'm not convinced Sherman Moore is the guy. So we'll see where they go from here. Moving on to Texas A&M and Texas. The most surprising result of the weekend, I think, an upset in the Lonestar Showdown. Texas took down A&M once again and kept them out of the SEC Championship again. A&M just cannot get it done against the Longhorns when it matters the most. Texas's offense has been completely incompetent all season long, but like I keep telling you guys, a team with that much talent can flip a switch and wake up at any moment. And this was easily one of their best offensive showings of the entire year. So that's what they did in this game. Arch Manning did not look like a complete dumpster fire for once, throwing for around 180 yards, and the run game actually showed signs of life with nearly 160 yards on the ground. Pair that with a defense that held A&M's explosive offense to just 17 points, and suddenly Texas looked like the team everyone assumed they would be in August. But it wasn't just Texas playing well. A&M definitely helped them a little bit. Marcel Reed threw two incredibly costly interceptions to put the Aggies in a hole that they never quite dug themselves out of. And yeah, his Heisman chances are pretty much gone at this point. I'm talking about Marcel Reed. So Texas A&M was this close to completing a perfect 12-0 regular season, something they haven't done since 1992. And their in-state rivals slammed the door shut. And because of it, the Aggies still have never been to the SEC Championship game. Now, as for Texas, there are going to be some pretty dumb conversations that arise. People are saying that Texas deserves a playoff spot because they scheduled tough out of conference. And listen, that's true. Ohio State was an incredibly hard game. They did schedule tough, but everyone seems to forget. They lost to Florida. They got dog-walked by Georgia. And they needed overtime to beat Kentucky and Mississippi State. If they didn't have the Texas logo, we wouldn't even be talking about them possibly making the playoffs with that. If this was Vanderbilt, we would not be looking at that record and saying they should make the playoffs. But it's Texas, so we kind of have to entertain it. So, no, a 3-loss Texas team does not deserve a playoff spot. It would be insane if they somehow snuck in. But with this committee, who knows? I have seen them do way dumber things. Moving on to Vanderbilt versus Tennessee. And Vanderbilt is a team that does deserve playoff consideration right now. They had a 45-24 dominant victory over in-state rival Tennessee, which was just kind of a statement win that forced everyone to pay attention to them. And honestly, the score could have been even worse. The one thing that kept Tennessee within shouting distance were two ill-advised hero ball interceptions from Pavia. Outside of those mistakes, Vanderbilt absolutely dictated this game from start to finish. This was domination at the line of scrimmage. Vanderbilt ran for 314 yards while holding Tennessee to just 83. They stacked up 579 total yards, nearly 200 more than Tennessee's 382, and Tennessee just had no answers for Vanderbilt's physicality, their run schemes, and their tempo. And despite those two interceptions, this was another strong showing for Pavia, who threw for 265 yards and continues to solidify himself as a legitimate Heisman contender. When he stays within the system, he's one of the most dangerous quarterbacks in the country. I've been trying to tell you guys all year, Vanderbilt is legit. They've cleaned up the issues that hurt them last season. They're significantly better on defense. They control the trenches, and they have surrounded their quarterback with real playmakers. And you add in a grade A coach that has this program believing this is a playoff caliber formula. As for Tennessee, look, I get it. That performance against Georgia raised expectations, but considering the chaos after Nico left, this season honestly was better than I expected. And losing to your in-state rival for the first time in what feels like forever does sting, no doubt. But this game says way more about how good Vanderbilt is than it does about how bad Tennessee is. Joey Aguilar is a really solid quarterback, and if he comes back, which I'm not sure if he's able to or not, but there's plenty to build around in Knoxville, but this year was not your year. The Vols just ran into a team that's peaking, surging, and playing some of the best football in the country. Moving on to clean old-fashioned hate, that's right, Georgia versus Georgia Tech, and this one did not have quite as much chaos as it did last year, but it still came down to the final play, and if we're being honest, officiating once again made this matchup closer than it probably should have been, but despite all that, Georgia walked out with a win. Was it pretty? Absolutely not. Was it the blowout that I predicted? Not even close, but it was a win, and at no point did it ever feel like Georgia was out of control. Georgia dictated this game the way they always do. They ran the ball, they controlled physicality, and they forced Haynes King to beat them with his arm. And that was never going to happen. Georgia Tech had virtually no success running the ball, which tracks perfectly with how elite Georgia's run defense has been all season. The Dawgs leaned on Tech from start to finish, wore them down, squeezed the clock, and waited for Tech to run out of time and ideas. And if Georgia wasn't already a playoff block before the game, they definitely are now. As for Tech, better luck next year, I guess, but let's be real, you guys are never beating Georgia. Go Dogs. Moving on to Oklahoma versus LSU, and if you watched this game like I did, you probably felt like you were taking benzos because, wow, this was the slowest, ugliest defensive slugfest of the season. Exactly what I told you to expect. And listen, if you listened to me and took the under on the total, congratulations, you made money. You're welcome. The game played out almost exactly how I predicted, with the one big exception. Oklahoma actually turned the ball over 3 times compared to LSU's 1 turnover, and they still won the game. They were playing with fire and barely escaped without getting burned. Usually, the past few games, Oklahoma's been the one forcing the turnovers, but not in this one. In this game, it was pretty dry. All it took was 2 explosive plays. LSU's offense did absolutely nothing unless their defense handed them a short field, and neither team ran the ball with any consistency, which, again, was to be expected. The real surprise here was that Oklahoma quietly threw for 318 yards, even though the scoreboard would never make you guess that. Mateer's 3 interceptions nearly cost them their playoff hopes, but Oklahoma did just enough to survive here, and now they're basically a lock for the postseason. As for LSU, honestly, something tells me that this fan base is coping okay, because it's hard to complain when you just hired Lane Kiffin. Now, we do have to talk about some of the ACC craziness, because after a few weeks of scenario talk, every chart, every possibility, every if, that, and then, we finally landed at the ACC Doomsday Scenario, which was going in probably the least likely scenario, but that's what we got. Duke, with 5 losses, is headed to the ACC championship game, and yes, that means the ACC is still very much in danger of missing the playoffs entirely. So here's the situation. If Duke wins the ACC title, there's a real chance that Tulane, who holds a head-to-head over Duke, or James Madison jumps into that top 4 conference championship slot, or even North Texas, instead of the actual ACC championship game, or the ACC champion. The conference has basically put its entire postseason future into a please don't mess this up scenario, unless Miami somehow makes their way in as an at-large bid. So how did we get here? Honestly, it was pretty straightforward. Virginia destroyed Virginia Tech to lock their spot in. UNC collapsed against NC State again. Miami handled Pitt. So it all came down to SMU versus Cal. For SMU, win and you're in, and lose, and Duke is back in through the side door. Cal jumped out to an early lead in that game. It looked like SMU's chances were dead on arrival, but SMU clawed their way back in and took the lead, actually, before the final minutes of the game. And then Cal found one last spark and scored with a minute left, or I think it was less than a minute, on the clock. And SMU still had a chance. They drove into field goal range and kicked a 50-yard, I think it was 50-plus yarder, and they missed the kick, sending Duke, of all teams, to the ACC championship game. So now it's Virginia versus Duke, and the ACC needs Virginia to win. Like, their entire postseason reputation depends on it, because it does. Now we have to talk about Lane Kiffin, because we finally have answers, and unfortunately the entire "where's Kiffin going" saga completely overshadowed the Egg Bowl. Not that it mattered much, because the game itself was a splattering. But yes, Lane Kiffin is officially the head coach at LSU, and the entire country seems furious about it, including myself. The reports on how his exit went are pretty bad. We're talking trying to poach the staff on the way out, sabotaging preparation because Ole Miss wouldn't let him coach in the playoffs, threatening to take players with him, burning every bridge on his way out. But the good news is most of his staff, or at least the defensive staff, they refused to follow him to LSU. A collective just middle finger that he absolutely earned, leaving the team on the brink of a historic playoff run, only to undermine them from the inside on the way out. It's just gross. It's unprofessional, and honestly, I'm just glad I don't have Lane Kiffin as my head coach. And I get that part of this was because of the coaching calendar. I get that side of it, but still, this was totally off base. But Lane Kiffin was not the only coach to move this cycle. Auburn locked up Alex Golesh, my favorite candidate of the cycle. Incredible hire. Pairing him with DJ Durkin, staying on his staff, is pretty massive, honestly. John Summerall is headed to Florida. I do like him a lot. He does kind of feel like Napier 2.0. The vibes are familiar, but I do think Summerall is a much better coach, and I think Florida fans will like him pretty immediately when they see what he can do. Ryan Silverfield from Memphis is headed to Arkansas, which is a bit surprising, but could work. Probably my least favorite hire of the cycle, though. And Ole Miss appears to be sticking with Pete Golding for now. He has the locker room, and he could see real success in Oxford. Meanwhile, Penn State looks like they're stuck choosing from what's left, since the top names are all off the board. I don't really know what they're doing at this point. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But they kind of had the earliest search, so they had the most time, and they're last. And the signing day is on Wednesday, so I don't know what they're going to do. Anyways, that's all for Rivalry Week, guys. There were a ton of meaningful games that I couldn't get to in this video, so if you want to hear my thoughts on those, drop a comment. I'll be there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time in my conference championship prediction video. Peace.